Okay, folks, we have TEAC A5C, which is asking you to use, translate, and make connections among algebraic, tabular, graphical, or verbal descriptions of linear functions. This is basically just the four corners that we did earlier in the year. And we're going to concentrate on just two of those four corners, the equation and the table. And we're going to show you different options on how to get back and forth between those two that you'll see here in the video. Now notice that your page is cut up into two columns. And the column on the left over here is going to concentrate on going from equations to tables. The column on the right is going to go from tables to equations. And we're going to give you at least three different options here on each, and you can choose the one that you prefer the most. So for instance, over here on the left, let's say that you're given the equation y equals 3x minus 2, and you want to generate a table from that equation. Well, the first option you guys could do would be to just graph that equation and then get the table from the graph. So you'll notice here that your b, or your starting point, would be -2, and that your m would be 3, or 3 over 1, which would give you the instructions to go up 3, right 1. So let's plot that and see what that looks like. I would start at the y-axis at -2, and then go up 3, right 1, and begin generating order pairs that way. Remember that you could also work the pattern backwards by going down 3, left 1. Once you have the backbone of that line, then you can go back with your straight edge and see exactly what the equation looks like. Okay. Now, for the purposes of our table, we're just going to be really concentrating on what those order pairs are. So to fill in the table, we just need three of these guys. So for instance, starting at the bottom there, I could have -2, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4, and that's one way you can generate a table. Let's discuss the second way. The second way would be to process a table. In other words, forego the picture and just generate the table by using your equation. And so you're going to start over here on the left side in your x column, and you're basically going to just make up three values of your domain. I would recommend just 0, 1, and 2. And then you're going to place those values into your equation. So wherever there's an x in the equation, you'll replace it with those values. The results that you get from those will be your values for y. So for instance, the first row would give us 3 times 0 minus 2, that's -2. And then 3 times 1 minus 2 is 1. And then 3 times 2 minus 2 is 4. That's another way to generate a table. The next way, the last way, might be the easiest. And that is if you have access to a calculator and your equation's already in the y equals mx plus b form, you can just go to your calculator, go to y equals, and put in 3x minus 2. Now, it already has a graph ready for you, but also it has a table as well. So if you do second graph, you can access the table, and then you get any value of y for any value of x. Okay?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the second column. The second column, we're starting with a table and going back to an equation. In this example, we have three data points in our table: -2, -3, 0, -4, and 2, -5. Option 1 on this chart here says we could graph the table. By graphing the table, we'd have to plot the points. So we'd go x is -2, y is -3 is going to be this point right here. 0, -4, 0, x, -4y is right here. 2, -5 is this point right here. Now we have 3 points to make up our line, so we can go and get our straight edge, and we can draw our straight line through those points. Now, from the graph, we can read the graph to come up with the values for our equation. We know we have the equation y equals mx plus b, so we have to find b, which is our y-intercept. If x equals 0, y equals -4. So -4 goes right in here. And then we have to find our m, which is our rise over our run. Rise over run, we would go down 1 and right 2. So we have down 1 and right 2 is a fraction, so it's going to be -1/2. And our equation, therefore, is y equals -1/2 x minus 4. Okay, continuing on, option 2. Option 2 says just generate an equation from the table. Well, let's see. We know from our table with our series of xy coordinates that we need to find our m. Our m is our change in y divided by change in x, which is going to be our rise over our run. So let's take a look at the jump between our y values. We know that's going to be our rise. And from -3 to -4, we're increasing by 1. From -4 to -5, we're increasing by 1. On the other side, actually that's a decrease, isn't it? So let's go back and say we're decreasing by 1 and decrease by 1. On the other side, we should be increasing. And our run is going to go from -2 to 0. That's a +2. And 0 to +2, that's another +2. So we know that rise over our run is going to be -1 over 2, which is -1/2. Okay. From there, we want to plug this into our equation. Well, let's assume we can pick a point off the table. I'm going to pick the last one. And let's use this as our x1, y1. So I'm going to choose 2, -5 to be my x1 and my y1. So if I plug that into my equation, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1, and plug in our values, we're going to have negative y1, and we're going to have negative x1, and we know that our slope is -1/2, and so we have our y and our x. So this is going to give us y plus 5 equals -1/2 x minus 2. And as we distribute the 1/2, we're going to get -1/2 x plus 1. And over here, as we subtract 5 from both sides, we're going to get our final answer for our equation, y equals -1/2 x minus 4, which is exactly what we had here. And then if we come back, we can see that, lo and behold, there's our y-intercept 0, -4, which also gives us our b. So if we had recognized that right away, we could plug in the -4 for b and use the -1/2 for m. Okay, last step is to use the calculator. Using the calculator, we would come back over to our calculator, and where do we put a table in the calculator? We would select the stat for statistics, enter. Now we have L1 for our input, L2 for our output. So looking back at our table, we have -2, 0, and +2 for our x values. For our y values, we have -3, -4, and -5. Okay? Now, we can check to make sure this is a straight line. I guess we can do that. Sure, we can go back and plot it real quick. Turn the plot 1 on and do graph. We can see these points line up in a straight line. Of course, there's our other line, which we should clear out, right? Y equals clear. Hello, clear. And these guys form a straight line, so we know we can go stat, calculate 4 to get the equation of that straight line, and that's going to be y equals -0.5 x minus 4, which is the same as -1/2 x minus 4, which is the same equation we had from the last time.
So as you guys turn your paper over and look at the back side, you'll have 5 questions here for you to complete. You can use these options here as kind of tools in your toolbox to help you get through the problem successfully. If you guys need help or extra help, then you guys can come in before after school for tutorials. You can access the internet and so forth. But these need to be done at the appropriate time. All right, thank you.